Hello everyone, welcome into Fatty's Feast, where we make the best food you'll ever eat without leaving your backyard. My name is Josh, and today we are going to be answering the age-old question of what is the best way to smoke your steak? That's right, smoked steak. I know everyone is always curious about that. I know I am. So we're going to settle the debate today. Recently, I made a video where we tested out the sear zone on this Monument Grill's grill behind me, where we figured out, is traditional searing the best route to take when cooking a thick boy like this, or reverse searing? Each one has kind of its pros and cons, but I've never tried it with smoking steak. So today we have three beautiful ribeyes in front of me. Picked these bad boys up at Costco. They have beautiful marbling. They look delicious, and we're going to do three tests. First, we're going to traditionally sear a steak, get that nice crisp on the crust, and then we're going to throw it on the smoker here. Another steak we're going to throw on the smoker first, get it up to our desired temp, and then sear it, so reverse searing it. And lastly, we're going to not sear a steak at all. We're going to put it on the smoker, let it ride out till it's at its internal temperature. We'll probably move it a little bit closer to get a little bit of a crispier crust on it. And by the end of this, we're going to figure out, does one have better flavor overall? Does one have better seasoning? Does one have a better smoke flavor? Is there a smoke ring? Did one take longer to cook than the other? There's so many things we can discuss. We're just gonna get right into it. All right, so let's pat these guys down real quick. And to start, we're just gonna throw on some kosher salt, some nice thick grain here. And you may notice I'm being a little bit liberal with my salt, and that's completely fine. If anything, we want an over-salted steak. Well, not really over-salted, but we want that salt to absorb in the meat. Now, if you're smart like me, you could do this the night before, let it sit in the fridge, but I don't know what I'm doing with my life, so I just do it before cooking. And we'll just press that in, make sure it gets in all the crevices. And then obviously we can't forget our sides. Always salt the sides of your meat. All right, let's pat down this side now. We got them flipped over. And we'll do the same thing on this side. It ain't rocket science. And now we'll slap our meat. That's hot. Love doing that. The slapping part is not a necessary step. I just like slapping meat. So the reason we're salting first is, like I said, we want the salt to absorb in the meat. So if you didn't do this the night before, you can let it sit for 15 or so minutes, and it's just gonna help. It's gonna draw out some of that moisture, and it'll get to a better room temperature. You don't want it warmed up all the way, but it'll adjust to the outdoor temperature. And that just means, in the long run, better cooking, more even cooking, etc. So now you can see I have my smoker fired up already. We're just burning some wood down to coals. Let's get this sear zone on this Monument Grill's fired up. So we're gonna let some of that build up, burn off of there. Notice I have this set on a lower heat, probably a medium-low heat. This sear zone takes about 10 minutes or so to warm up, so we'll just let it do its thing while our steaks are absorbing that salt. All right, so let's get some of this wood settled down here, and we'll throw this guy right on top. And look at that, burning efficiently, a beautiful fire. I'm actually gonna try to keep this fire a little bit dirtier because we're not gonna have a lot of time to get smoke flavor on these steaks. But that's burning pretty clean right now. So hopefully by the time we throw the steaks on, it burns down a little bit. We get a little bit of smoke. All right, so it's been about 10 minutes. As you can see, we have beautiful moisture coming out of our steaks. I don't know if beautiful moisture is really a thing, but anyway, let's get to seasoning these guys up a little bit more. The first thing we're coming in with is a lot of bit of black pepper, coarse ground. You know I love me some black pepper, and this is just going to help the smoke adhere to the meat, and we're gonna get these guys nice and coated. And then something I don't always do, but we're gonna do it today because I'm in the mood for it, is granulated garlic, your garlic powder. In other words, we're doing SPG, people, and I'm just gonna smash this in to make sure it adheres to the meat as much as we can. And then of course I'll get my sides. And there we have it, some beautifully seasoned ribeye steaks. Now, I'm very well aware this steak is the biggest, this is the next biggest, and this is the smallest. Unfortunately, when I was looking at steaks at Costco, the 3-packs were kind of all uneven, and this is the closest I could come to them being even. Not ideal, but it happens. So in this case, what we're gonna do is this first steak here, the in-between steak, but a little bit bigger, is going to be our seared steak. The thicker guy is going to be our reverse seared steak. And the only reason I'm doing that is because I sometimes have trouble with gauging when to take it off the smoker. I know it's like 115, 120, but I've overcooked steaks using reverse searing before, which is weird because usually that's not the case. And then our last guy is going to be the completely smoked steak. The reason being, it's not gonna cook as fast because we're not searing it. So I think it'll allow us to have everything done at basically the same time. So let's sear this guy up. Just like that. And we're only gonna let these sear for about a minute per side. So now that that's been on for about 30 seconds, let's rotate it. The smell coming off this guy is absolutely amazing. Not a lot of smoke so far, so I'm hoping it's at a good enough sear temperature. And after another 30 seconds, we'll flip it over. Might turn this guy up just a little bit to get a nice crust on this. Might sear that a little bit more on that side too. Remember, we're not cooking this steak right now to doneness, so it doesn't really matter. We're not gonna overcook it. Now let's rotate it. All right, we'll flip it one more time. All right, that's about as good as we're gonna get it. We'll get our sides here. All right, and that's what we got. I don't wanna overcook it or anything like that, so we're gonna throw it right on. Not ideal, but that's where we're at. So let's throw this guy toward the back. We'll put our steak that is going to be reverse seared right next to it. And then finally our smoke only steak right at the end toward the fire. And something I don't traditionally do, but we're gonna do it here, we're gonna put some probes in. Because this cook is not going to take as long, I wanna have a good eye on what the temperature is. And obviously the last thing we wanna do is overcook our steaks, which I've done before. And there we go, seared, reverse sear, no sear, smoked, whatever. Let's shut her down. All right, so we're gonna let these guys go for however long it takes. Our goal here is a medium rare to a medium. I like my steaks a little bit over medium rare. I know that's a sin. So I'm gonna take them off probably around 125, let them finish cooking off during the rest period. So I'll bring you back when we're ready to do something, whatever that might be. See you in a few. Okay, let's see where we're at. We're about 20 minutes in here. What I want to do actually is take these probes out. Oh, that worked. And we're gonna flip these steaks because we're about halfway through. And I'm just doing this for evenness of cooking. Get those nice grill marks on either side. Oh yeah, that top rack really pisses me off. I should have moved that. Okay, and then we'll stick our probes back in as I'm burning my hand because I'm an idiot. And we'll shut her down again. Now, one thing I want to point out, you have the 115, which is the seared steak. You have the 76 in the middle, which is the reverse sear, and the 80, we'll call it 87, which is the smoke only steak. So the thing I want to point out there is with the seared steak, it's obviously going to be hotter because we already put it on the heat. That momentum carried over to the smoker, and it's going to just keep going. It's going to keep cooking. That reverse sear steak, obviously it's a little bit bigger, so it's going to take a little more time. And then the non-seared at all, smoked only steak is heating up faster because it's closer to the fire. So at the end of the day, if you have 3 even-sized steaks, unfortunately, unlike I have, they should all be done around the same time because that seared steak is going to slow down a little bit in the cooking process. And that reverse sear steak, we're going to take it off about 115 or so, maybe 120, just to make sure we don't overcook it. We'll finish off while that other steak is slowly climbing up after it loses that momentum from the sear. Very long-winded explanation, but they should all be done around the same time, long story short. So I'll see you back in another 20. All right, so our traditional sear is at a good internal temp of about 127. Let's flip this guy over, see what we're looking at. Once again, not the best sear, but it's not terrible, that's for sure. So we'll put him off to the side. The no sear guy is at an internal temp of 113, so I'm gonna drag him over to a hotter spot in the smoker. And we're just gonna try to kind of sear him up that way, give him a few minutes on either side. Notice we're right next to the firebox here. This guy is at about 100, right? So we're gonna let that go for another 5 or so minutes before we throw them on the grill. The other thing to note is even though I have my probes in the steak, I also have been taking temperatures all around the steak every time I open this guy up with my Thermapen. Very important to have one of these. You can't feel steak, especially steaks this size, and know when they're done. So if you can get one of these guys, they're not cheap, but it's going to save you a lot of time and effort versus getting cheap thermometers after cheap thermometer and ruining meat. Trust me, you need one of these guys. Not a sponsor, but get one. Links in the description. All right, we're about to throw the reverse sear on. I got the sear zone going again. One thing I've noticed is this is at the same heat level as I had before, but it looks hotter. There's more flares. I don't know what exactly is going on with this thing, but we'll see if it affects it. Then I got my steaks resting in the grill. That's off. All right, and here's our last guy. This guy that's no longer there came off about 5 minutes ago. So we'll pull this out and bam, right on. I already noticed way more smoke coming off of this one. Maybe it's because of the fat content or because the sear zone is weird. And by the way, I pulled this guy off at 110 to sear it on here, figuring we can get 15 degrees just from this sear. Now let's give her a flip. Yeah, see, there's the difference right there. Much better color than the traditional sear. And I don't know if that has to do with the smoking or the momentum coming off of the smoker, but it looks pretty damn good. And if we take an internal temp, we're at 121 already, so 10 degrees in that short period of time. It was literally on that side for about a minute. And we'll give them the, oh God, we'll give them the twist. And look at that. Looking pretty damn good to me. Now let's see what this side looks like. Looking fine. Get that fat rendered down a little bit. All right, and this guy is good to go. Let's move right over here to where I have my tray, and we'll throw him right in the middle. Maybe if he stays. And so right here we have our traditional sear, which looks eerily similar to the no sear. Maybe just a little bit different with this crusty bit here, but very similar in color. And then the reverse sear is looking hot as always. I don't know which one's gonna be best. I'm very curious. And yes, I wrote this down so I don't confuse them when I flip them or something. So we're gonna let them rest for 10 minutes and we'll give them a try. All right, so I am thrilled with the way these turned out. They are cooked to absolute perfection, the exact temperature I want them to be, and they all are literally even. One's not overcooked more than the other, so this is really, really cool. And they are so freaking juicy. We're gonna try the seared guy first, see what that's talking about. Get some of the juices soaked up here, just a little bit. All right, let's give it a try. I mean, it tastes like a traditional steak, but better. Now, I will say, I don't get really any smoke flavor on that, like at all. I don't taste it. I taste the salt, I taste the pepper, I taste a little bit of the garlic powder, a little bit chewy, but that's kind of how steak is sometimes, especially the traditional sear method where you're not just searing it over and over again. It's pretty good, but the flavor is great, but I wouldn't know if I had that steak that I put it on the smoker. So let's try the reverse seared now. See what this guy is all about. This guy's obviously a bit thicker. Got some fat there. This gristle, I can't stand that stuff, but that pulls apart a little bit easier. I don't know why that is, but I found that with reverse sear, it just tends to do that. And this guy's thicker too, so who knows? Get a little hint of smoke flavor. Nothing huge, but you can tell it was smoked. In that bite, I got a little bit more. So obviously we can tell so far that the reverse sear, because it was on the smoke and got that smoke flavor previous to being seared, tastes a little more smoky. But what about the real guy in question here, which is our non-seared kind of, which, as I said earlier, I think it's got the best color for not being seared. It's pretty damn attractive, in my opinion. I love looking at meat, so. But how's the flavor going to be? It seems a little bit more overdone than the rest of them, but that's tender. Oh, and the fat. It's not like brisket rendering fat, but that you can tell something's different. That one you can tell is smoked. I want to try another piece of that if I can. Let's take one. It's getting confusing now. Hang on one second. So let's take one right here. I want to bring you in close. So notice, like, no real smoke ring, but it pulls apart, like just like that. I mean, it's not butter. It's not like a brisket, but compared to the other ones, pretty good. Now, I just want to try this reverse seared one more time, just to see if I can taste any more smoke flavor. No, I mean, I can taste it. It's just not on par with the completely smoked steak. So here are my final thoughts for you. If you are going to smoke a steak, just smoke it. I mean, simple as that. Don't worry about searing it first and throwing it on the smoker. If you want to sear it first, you want to do the traditional sear, just sear it on the grill and keep it on the grill. Because I don't think you're going to absorb any smoke flavor once that steak is seared. You're already kind of sealing in the steak, so it can't absorb much more of anything. It's already kind of where it's at. The reverse sear, on the other hand, if you want a little bit of smoke flavor, just a tiny bit, not overbearing, not like anything that you'd be like, oh wow, this steak's smoked. You can taste there's something different, but go ahead and do the reverse sear. If you just want a little tiny bit of smoke flavor. If you want a healthy amount, I'm not saying it's like overbearing or anything, it's not. But if you want a truly tender, you can taste that smoke's part of the seasoning, if you will. Can't go wrong with just smoking a steak and then moving it toward the front of the smoker or toward the firebox when it's about time to sear it, like you would do with a reverse sear. But whatever you do, that method is perfect if you want a little bit of smoke flavor on your steak. And it's equal with the salt, pepper, garlic powder. Like, I can taste all of that with this. With the reverse sear, it's kind of just, it's there, but not really. Everything else kind of overpowers it. So I'm glad we were able to settle this debate once and for all. What's the best way to smoke a steak? Just smoke it. Simple. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Fatty's Feast. If you did, nuke that like button, get this content out to more people, and leave a comment on some ideas you want to see me do on the smoker, on the griddle, on the grill. It doesn't matter. Check out these videos or video playlists, however I do it. Smack dab in the middle, subscribe if you want to see more of my diabetic face. And until next time, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and stay hungry.